Memoirs of Aunt Martha. I saved $1 million for my kids, but they chose their stepmom on my birthday, so I changed the will. It was my 70th birthday, and my house smelled of cinnamon roast and sweet cranberry pie, but the chairs stayed empty. The morning started early, as it always had. I woke before the sun, folded the Afghan at the foot of my bed, and walked into the kitchen with the same quiet anticipation I'd felt every October for the last decade. Outside, the trees were shedding amber leaves that danced gently across the driveway. Inside, my old radio hummed with soft jazz, and the kettle clicked once before it sighed to life. I went to the farmer's market before breakfast. Mr. Doyle waved from behind a stack of Macintosh apples, his flannel shirt tucked sloppily into jeans like always. He handed me a bunch of rosemary on the house. "For that roast you do," he said, "the one you make when family's coming." I smiled and nodded. I didn't tell him they hadn't shown up last year either. Back home, I laid out the cloth napkins, the embroidered ones I only used on special days. I polished the silver, even though no one would notice, and wrote out place cards in my best cursive. Ethan, Hannah, Vivienne. The pie cooled by the window, its sugary scent drifting across the hallway. I even lit the vanilla candle in the bathroom, something Hannah once teased me about, saying it was so quaint. The dining table looked like a spread from a Thanksgiving magazine. 6 chairs, 3 plates. My wedding china. I checked the family group chat. No new messages. I sent a photo of the table and typed, "Can't wait to see you all, dinner's at 6, love you." RSVP by 3. The roast was done. I kept the oven on low. By 5, I switched to my blue cardigan, the one with the pearl buttons. I pinned on the brooch Jim gave me on our last anniversary. I stared at the clock more than I should have. 6 came and went. The radio played a song from my 20 seconds. Something about missing chances. By 7, I poured myself a glass of tea and sat by the front window. A single car passed a neighbor, not my kids. My phone buzzed once, a work email, nothing else. I stood, knees creaking, and packed the plates into Tupperware. I told myself they'd be hungry later, even if they didn't make it. I went to the hallway drawer and pulled out 2 envelopes, both sealed, each with a check that would make their lives easier than mine ever was. Underneath them lay the deed to the house. I hesitated, then tucked them all back into the folder and slid the drawer shut. Later, in the kitchen, the fridge hummed gently as I sat at the head of the table. My plate was empty. I looked at the candle stub in the center and whispered, "Happy birthday, Martha," to no one in particular. The calendar still hung beside the phone. October 14th was circled in red. Dinner with Ethan and Hannah. 6 p.m. I didn't erase it. The next morning, Martha receives a photo on Facebook. Her kids at a party, not hers. 2 clicks, one to delete the birthday group chat, the other to email a lawyer. The silence of the house pressed heavier than usual that morning. I stood in the living room, bathed in soft gray light leaking through the curtains, holding my phone like it might burn me. My thumb hovered for only a moment before tapping delete chat, no more unread promises. Then I opened my email, found the old message from June with Mr. Tomlin's contact, and hit reply. The subject line read, "Appointment request." The drawer that once held deeds and dreams now felt like a tomb. I didn't even open it this time. I just walked past it, brushed the dust off my cardigan, the faded navy one I used to wear at the library, and headed across the street to June's. She poured chamomile into 2 chipped mugs, and set down a plate of lemon cookies. Her kitchen still smelled like antiseptic and cinnamon, a remnant of her nurse days and her stubborn belief in Vicks Vapor Rub. She looked at me over her bifocals. "You done waiting for crumbs?" she asked. Not unkindly. I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sigh. "I think I might be. You raised them with books, Martha, but they only read their own chapters." That one stuck with me all the way to Mr. Tomlin's office. His office was tucked above the old bakery, up a flight of creaky stairs. A little bell jingled when I opened the door. The space smelled of paper and peppermint. Dusty law encyclopedias lined the walls. A small U.S. flag drooped in the corner next to a faded poster about elder trusts. He stood up slowly when I entered. "Mrs. Ellis," he said, buttoning his sweater vest. His voice had that patient rhythm, the kind that didn't rush anyone. I nodded, unsure why my throat felt tight. He gestured to a chair opposite his desk. "I understand you want to update your estate documents." I pulled the yellow envelope from my purse and laid it on the desk. "That's the old one. Read it if you like. Then shred it. He paused, lifting his glasses to his forehead. Are you certain? I am. He leafed through the pages anyway, respectful of the past I had just buried. Then he folded the papers neatly and placed them in the shredder. It whirred softly, turning promises into confetti. We spent the next hour drafting the new will. Everything, my savings, the house, the tiny book collection I curated over a lifetime, was to go to a local literacy fund and a charity that helped single mothers return to school. I added a note, requesting my library cardigan be donated to the children's reading room. Mr. Tomlin looked up from typing and softly asked, Are you sure? I looked straight at him and said, steady and calm, I've never been more sure. That night, I returned home to the same quiet house. I stood in the hallway where the birthday cards were kept, each tucked inside a shoebox labeled by year. I opened them all one by one. Most were store-bought, scribbled with, Love Ethan or Hope It's Happy Mom. Some years there were none. One card caught my eye. It had glitter and stickers and a childish scroll. Happy birthday, Grandma. I love you. Big like the moon, Vivienne. I set that one aside. The rest I shredded. They didn't bring flowers, but they brought demands. I heard their footsteps before the knock. Quick, sharp, like heels on hardwood. Through the frosted glass of the front door, I saw Hannah's stiff silhouette and Ethan's hunched shoulders. I opened it without a smile. They entered like guests in a stranger's home, eyes scanning for something to criticize. The cake from Vivienne had been left in the fridge. Martha placed it on the table, still untouched. I had taken it out this morning, placed it neatly beside the sugar bowl, hoping maybe Vivienne might see it. The pumpkin decor hung limp in the windows, the Halloween candy bowl full and untouched, save for the lone butterscotch. I snuck in a moment of quiet. The wind scraped dry leaves across the porch, and somewhere down the block, a child shrieked with laughter. The season was moving forward. I was too. Mom. Hannah started before she sat. We heard from Uncle Mark. You changed the will. Ethan didn't even sit. He hovered near the hutch, arms folded. Is this about the birthday? She continued. You're punishing us for one missed night. I didn't answer right away. I walked to the kitchen, poured 3 cups of coffee, then set 2 down without comment. Mine. I held on to. Cold. It's not one night, I said, still facing the window. It's a lifetime. Ethan scoffed. Come on, that's not fair. No. I turned, voice steady. What's not fair is the silence every Thanksgiving while I sat at a table set for 5. What's not fair is mailing you birthday cards you never opened, or baking pies that spoiled untouched. What's not fair is pretending I wasn't lonely. They said nothing. The only sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator, and somewhere outside, wind rustling plastic skeletons on someone's porch. Vivienne tugged gently at her mother's sleeve. Grandma, she asked, voice full of that innocent age. Why don't you love us anymore? Dad did it. I crouched beside her, brushed her curls back with my wrinkled fingers, and kissed her soft forehead. I do. I whispered. But I love me too, and I forgot how. For a long time, silence followed, thick and jagged. I raised you to be strong, I said, turning to Ethan and Hannah, but I forgot to teach myself the same. Hannah's voice cracked. You're cutting us out of everything. You have 30 days to move out of the house I still legally own, I said. Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came. Hannah stood rigid, cheeks flushed. The flicker of entitlement in their eyes met the firmness in mine and lost. The door creaked open as they stepped onto the porch. Behind them, the hallway echoed with memories I no longer wanted to carry. A neighbor kid in a dinosaur costume skipped up the walkway, paused at the porch stairs, then darted away, sensing something grown up and cold. As they walked to the car, Hannah muttered under her breath, "You'll regret this." I closed the door slowly, my hand resting on the frame just long enough to steady my breath. "I already did," I whispered. "Until now. I bought them a house. Now I'm taking it back. With my name still on every brick." The wind beat sharper than usual that morning. My fingers trembled, not from the chill, but from the jangle of the keys in my coat pocket. Keys to a house I once gave with love. And now I was reclaiming with resolve. I remembered the day I signed the deed, thinking, this is their future. Now it's mine again. The realtor's office smelled like synthetic pumpkin and cinnamon wax melts, not the real kind, like my kitchen used to. Carla, a woman in her 50s with silver curls and eyes that knew pain, smiled when I handed her the spare key. "You're doing the right thing," she said gently. I nodded. "Just list it," I replied. "Price it fair, but move fast." She scanned the paperwork. "Your name's still the only one on the title." I exhaled. "That's the point." Later that afternoon, the storm came, not from the sky, but from my front steps. Ethan didn't knock, he banged. "You're selling our house," he shouted before I even opened the door. "No," I said softly, "I'm selling mine." "You can't do this," he said again, as if repetition could change the truth. I stepped aside so he could storm in, pacing like a man who'd never had to read fine print. Michelle followed, arms crossed, fury in her carefully drawn eyebrows. "Where is Vivienne supposed to sleep now?" she demanded. I looked her in the eye. "Wherever her parents decide. That's not for me to fix anymore." She scoffed. "You're punishing her for our mistake." "No," I replied, steady. "I'm making sure I never make the same mistake again." The conversation circled like vultures. Accusations, denials, the word selfish flung more than once. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Instead, I walked to the side table, pulled out the manila envelope I tucked away, and laid it gently on the dining room table. The original deed, my name in bold black ink, stood where it had always been, unread, untouched. I slid it toward Ethan. "You forgot," I said, but I didn't. Neither spoke. He stared at it as if expecting the paper to dissolve. Michelle's breath hitched. I let the silence hang like laundry on a cold day. Eventually, they left. No hugs, no goodbyes, just the echo of the door closing behind them. The next morning, my phone buzzed while I was folding laundry, the scent of lavender still clinging to my late husband's old flannel shirt. "Martha." Carla's voice was brisk but kind. "The house has 3 offers already." I held the shirt for a moment longer, smoothing the collar before answering. "Let's take the best one fast." I turned off my phone, and the silence felt like a warm blanket. It was late November, and the first breath of winter had brushed the windows with fog. I pushed open the double doors of the cafe, the bell above them chiming soft and low like a whisper, saying, "Welcome back." The place still smelled like cedar shelves and freshly ground coffee with a hint of orange peel I'd tucked into the simmer pot behind the counter. They once called only when they needed money. Now even that had stopped, and somehow I didn't miss it. The space had been a dream long before it had a name. Rows of second-hand books found new homes between baskets of yarn, purring cats, and chipped mugs that warmed the hands of strangers. The fireplace crackled softly in the corner. Miles, young and thoughtful, arranged biscotti beside the register while asking if I wanted him to update the cafe's Instagram. "You go ahead." I smiled, adjusting my reading glasses. "Just make sure my chin isn't in any photos." He laughed and nodded. "Got it. Only the books and the drinks." The seniors arrived before 10. Ellie helped stack book donations into themed piles. Mystery. Memoir, a whole shelf for war novels the veterans liked. Thursdays brought a knitting circle. Fridays, a group of quiet, reflective men and women in ball caps and faded jackets met for what they called coffee and remembering. Mr. Doyle, now retired from the farmer's market, came in every Tuesday. He always ordered the silent strength latte, a name I'd scribbled on the menu board one afternoon after rereading a poem that had once helped me through grief. "You've built something rare here, Martha," he said one morning, his hands warming around the cup. "You gave us a room that listens." The reporter arrived that same week, notebook in hand, eyes shining like he'd stepped into a different century. He asked questions, took photos of Miles pouring coffee, of Ellie knitting by the window. I didn't mind. I just hoped he'd spell my name right. One quiet evening after the last guest had gone and Miles had waved goodnight, I sat by the fire with a cup of chamomile. A donated copy of Anne of Green Gables rested on my lap. When I opened it, something fell out. A note handwritten on a yellowed slip of paper. "Your story matters, keep going." There was no name. I held it to my chest and closed my eyes. Maybe it was from Ellie or Miles, or maybe from a stranger who'd seen more than I realized. Outside, the streetlights buzzed on. I pulled the curtain gently across the window, letting the jazz playlist fill the air like company. The quiet no longer felt empty, it felt earned. Thanksgiving morning arrived with a pale sunrise and the scent of pumpkin bread rising in the oven. I tied on my apron and opened the door to let in the soft morning air and froze. Luna stood there, her hair tangled, eyes swollen from crying. Her hands rested gently on the swell of her belly. She didn't say a word. "Neither did I," she said. "Mom, I made a mistake." "Then let this be your first step, right?" The rain had been falling since morning, tapping a steady rhythm on the cafe windows like an old clock, trying to tell a new time. Thanksgiving had come quiet and gray, but inside the back room it was warm. Pillows on the armchairs, soft cinnamon lingering in the air, and the hum of Miles steeping tea just beyond the door. I remembered the Elsa cake. I remembered the shredded deed. I remembered who I became. Luna sat across from me, her belly now full with life, and her eyes hollowed out by too many nights without sleep. Her mascara had long since run, leaving tired shadows on her cheeks. I handed her a tissue. Without a word, just a gentle glance that said, "You may speak or not. Either way, I'm here." "He left," she whispered. "Took the car, the savings, and my last ounce of pride. I have nowhere to go." I let silence stretch between us like a soft rope, not to hang her with guilt, but to pull her closer to her own voice. Miles came in quietly, placed 2 cups of steaming peppermint tea on the side table, and slipped out again with a nod. No words, just the kind of respect you can't teach. Luna reached for the tea but didn't drink it. Her hands trembled. "I know, I said things," she mumbled. "And I let them. I let him," her voice cracked. I didn't interrupt. I wouldn't rescue her from the truth. "You don't have to forgive me," she added, eyes downcast. "I won't offer you money," I said finally. "But there's a spare room upstairs. It's quiet and it's clean. You can have it for a month." She blinked. "No rent. No rescues either," I said, sipping my tea. "Just a door. You decide if you walk through it." Tears fell, but they weren't dramatic. They were slow, private, the kind that fall when you finally let yourself feel tired. Luna reached into her purse and pulled out a folded hospital pamphlet. "They gave me a due date, January 9th. I nodded, tracing the rim of my mug with one finger. "Will you come to the birth?" she asked, voice barely more than breath. "I'll be at the cafe," I said. "You know where to find me." She didn't ask again. She just sat there, letting her body remember that safety doesn't always come with conditions. When she finally stood, I helped her on with her coat, too thin for the weather. The bell above the front door jangled faintly as it opened. She hesitated in the doorway, rain falling like threads of silver around her. Then she turned back. "Happy Thanksgiving, Mom. And to you." She stepped out into the afternoon, the mist catching her hair, making her look younger. For a moment, like the girl who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during story time. I didn't follow. I returned to the back room, where the cat, Pepper, rescued from a bookstore flood last spring, had curled up on the blanket beside my reading chair. I eased into it, book in hand, the tea still warm, the fire still murmuring behind the glass. Outside, the town slowed for its dinners and dramas. Inside, I turned the page. This time I gave thanks for myself. The rain had stopped, but its memory still lingered in the scent of cinnamon and the hush of an empty cafe. I didn't need applause or apologies. What I needed, I had finally given myself. I used to think that sacrifice was love, that giving everything meant I would be cherished. But I've come to understand, if you don't value yourself, even your closest kin might forget how to. Like a favorite quilt once passed from hand to hand on winter nights. Warm, familiar, until it's folded away in the attic, no longer needed, no longer seen. So, if this story found you at the edge of your own quiet storm, maybe